I'm recording right now, so hopefully all this video and the voice should all come up on the final video. So we're gonna talk about animated effects, the things that I discovered working on the whale scene actually when I was, and also actually not
Can
the
you
whale scene.
show it in little quick and Quill theater if you
Yeah,
yeah, so
actually,
people know what you're talking about?
yeah, it's more the father fishing with my dad scene. I think that's the one that I started to come up with these tricks. So
If
this.
you want to mute the sound in the UI,
Okay.
Daniel.
Yeah. Is
Yeah,
that good?
thanks.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So I come up with an idea of making this wake of the
rail.
the water. Can you hear me?
Yeah,
Okay. The water wake. So and that's kind of the beginning of something that spiral into, oh, I have an idea, oh, maybe I can do this, oh yeah. You know what I mean? So the way I did this, and I'm going to show you right now, is using Goro's trick of making essentially this like a complete
infinite loops.
infinite transform movement in one direction, right? So the little waves here, I did one set of them and then I moved them, and using Goro's trick, it looks like it's infinitely moving in that direction, right? So let's go back to Quill and let's see how we do this. So that once I got the hang of it, I started to really practice and figure out, oh, we can do a lot of effects based on this, and I really wanted to share with you guys. So let's see how something like the wake was done. Um, Actually, I did something like that, something like this, like a shape, and it's very important. It has like waves, so like a wavy shape, right? And also, it's very important that we can we can make it connect at some point, right? Anyway, I'm just gonna do this really rough. It doesn't have to be really good. I want you guys to understand the concept. Let's do, and you will see later at the end of the class that you can apply this to other effects and other things. Um, Let me do, okay, no. We have this thing, and oops. Let's get this, and let's get the color ready as well. Okay, so I wanna make sure that the bottom part and the top part are gonna be able to connect somehow. So I'm using the grid really here to my advantage, you know, because I know I want to connect the bottom and the top. I want them to somehow be connected, right? And it's very important it has that kind of wavy shape. So let's because I'm in the grid. Every time I do the gimbal, it's gonna be always perpendicular, and it's gonna always have this kind of perfect connection, right? It's all flat and connected. All right, so we have this, and actually, no, I forgot to do something before duplicating. We have to draw some guides, and these guides are gonna be useful to match with the grid, right? And to draw the guides, I'm just gonna use a straight line, and the reason to use this is because it won't go on the other on the other axis. It's gonna really stick to the grid, yeah. So let's get that these guides. This is just following Goro's trick, huh? So at
Yeah,
the
I would
moment,
make the guides actually like super long, so you can select them later. But it's fine for
yeah,
now.
yeah,
But
yeah, yeah.
just as a tip, I would just generally make them long.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. So anyway, let's carefully connect those guides in there. Another duplicate and make sure it connects really well here.
When you do this, Daniel, like I tend to just use redo because then it's like a perfect duplicate. You know,
Oh
like
yeah, that's
so when you do the first duplication, I just keep redoing because then you don't have an offset at all. You know,
oh yeah,
like
yeah.
it's actually perfect.
Yeah, you're right. Okay, let's do what Goro said. Let's do a redo here.
So while Daniel's fixing that, just a quick question. So Goro, you have this style of doing the infinite loop, and then if you look at Nick's instructions or his tutorials on Anim Brush Academy, he uses an erase tool to sort of close in the infinite loop. Do you guys see a difference or preference on one way versus the other?
Absolutely. So that's like also a trick that I used to use back in the days, and I think Nick used to do it that way too. I think he changed his workflow too. Just remember that anything that is erased is still there. So it's actually not very performant because you're blowing up the poly count.
Well,
So basically, if you erase strokes only if the strokes are 100% gone, like 100% transparent, and you covered the entire stroke, it actually disappears. But otherwise, it's just an opacity change. So basically, what I would recommend to do is just what Daniel did, like without erasing, and instead of letting it erase, you just paint it, colorize it with a background color to make it look transparent, for example, or mask it with like a large stroke.
okay, perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, I may
Yep.
use erase in this live stream though.
Daniel!
But yeah, no, Goro is right. It's better to use the colorize with the background color. But yeah, there's many ways to
Yeah,
do the
because
same thing.
then there's no transparency computation and stuff. You don't get the dithering, and it's also like poly budget wise, it's better.
Yes, that's true. I am not the best at doing that. I'm a very
You're pretty good.
I tend to use the transparency, but yeah, it's good. It's a good thing to keep in mind. Like, it's better to colorize in terms of performance, and also to avoid the dithering effect, right? But anyway, let's get them moving. And like you know, the Goro trick means basically that we have to move this with a transform key, right? So I added a transform key in the first frame and random frame. It doesn't matter which one. Just gonna put another one, and then we'll decide later the speed. But first of all, before the speed, we're just gonna move, and I'm gonna move it exactly one quadrant or one grid square, right? So just make sure that exactly the amount of movement is one grid square, which is actually the size of the sprite. I'm calling these pieces sprites, right? These duplicates.
I actually don't think you set a key.
Oh, you're absolutely right. Sorry. This morning is being bad.
I do that so often, you're fine.
There's so many things that are going wrong. Okay. Let's do this again. So now we have wait. Yeah, I want to begin from the first keyframe, second keyframe, and then move it exactly one grid. It's gotta be precise. I mean, don't go crazy with the precision. If it's not 100%, it's okay. I think the effect is gonna still work. And then to complete the effect, we need to loop this forever, right? So the way to do that, as you know, is put this into a sequence layer, get it inside of the sequence layer, and then we have the playhead on that end of the loop. So we select the sequence layer, and then we click on loop, and hopefully it's going to loop this thing forever. And the effect is going to be like instead of moving backwards, which is actually what it does, it's actually going back, but it's not. The visual effect is like it keeps going forward. So having that super clear, let's see what else we can do with this, right? First of all, we can change the speed by just changing this and then going back here, loop it again, so we have a faster cycle. Let's say, and this is how I did the wake. And how do you avoid this popping? So once you have this working and you have the right amount of speed, you can bake it, right? And then when you bake it, you make it into frame by frame animation, which is, I'm going to tell you why it's so important to do that, right? But before baking, it's very important to go here and remove the little guides that are going to be annoying later because they're going to be duplicated. So I remove the guides, go here, hit on bake, and boom, we bake it. That's awesome. We have this amazing group of geometry frames making this perfect movement up, and it's repeating infinitely. And the only problem right now is that we have this pop. So to remove the pop, like we were saying before, there's two ways. You can either erase, so we can do this, just holding the trigger as much as possible, and the same for the bottom part right there. Just make sure that we don't see that pop. And if we wanted this to be bigger, the solution would have been to just make it bigger before doing the transform. Just make it longer, so we have more, because to remove the pop you have to sacrifice one quadrant of the pattern that you established, right?
If you quickly can cover, like if you can hide this frame by frame and bring back the keyframe one again. I just want to like recommend. So basically, because you baked it, you have a lot of geometry, right?
Yeah.
Another way to do it is you just use the cube brush and mask the opposite ends with the background color. So you can make it so it just covers, so like a large cube brush, right?
Yeah,
and then
in the my dad's scenes,
yeah.
what I did is mask it. So instead of erasing, I masked it.
Yeah, just to cover the advantage of doing that is like because keyframed animation is interpolated at the headset's frame rate, so it's gonna look super smooth. But when you bake it, then it goes to the global frame rate, which is gonna be in this case 24 frames per second. So it might look a little bit jittery, right?
Yeah, but you get that, and it's a disadvantage, but you get advantages, which I'm gonna talk about later, right?
Cool. Yeah.
I mean, yeah, we can totally do this mask. I wish there was a way to to really recover that color of the background, but we can just this is the background, and that's it. Yeah, so that's a mask now, and just what I did in my scene is just use the erase tool a little bit here, a little gradient, and now we have this really smooth, like Goro said. The advantage of doing this without baking is you get this really smooth motion, and thanks to the mask it kind of disappears, and it works well for like a wake of a boat, you know. But the problem is, okay, it's really smooth, it's really nice, but it's just very similar. All these are the same. You could really see it's the same as a straight line, and it's kind of boring, right? So how can we make that a little bit more fancy? So using the bake version of it, thanks to having this baked, we can do more effects and more things to it. So how do we do it? So just use the selection tool and just cover everything, right? And hit play. And what Quill does, which is wonderful, is selecting every single frame into one multi-selection, right? So at the moment, the computer is starting to chug a little bit. It's going crazy because I have all this geometry selected. But that we can use that to our advantage, because if you use the graph tool, we could do some cool little changes to our animations. It doesn't always look the same. It looks a little bit more interesting, more similar to real life if we're doing this kind of wake effect, right? And also the thickness is a cool thing to try. Maybe they get smaller at the end and thicker in the beginning, right? And the wonderful thing is it keeps the animation
Nice.
as it is. And doesn't that isn't that amazing? I mean, when I discovered this, I was like, dude, you can just do so many things with this trick. Like, doesn't it look like a smoke effect as well?
Really, really
Kind
cool
of,
there.
kind of looks like a smoke effect, right? So this is flat, and now we're using it as a wake of a boat, right? Imagine this is a boat. But what about we want to do a smoke or a fire? Okay, let's delete all the stuff, and let's make.
And this is something you definitely can't do with the technique I was talking about with just transform keyframes, because you're basically changing the one frame, like one layer, one
Yes.
frame layer. So it's any change is gonna show.
Yes, exactly.
It depends on what you want to do.
Transform, yeah, exactly. Transform keys you get you the advantage of super smooth frame rate, and that's wonderful too. I mean, but it gives you the disadvantage that only uses one set of geometry and then moves it in across the time, right? Baking it gives you the advantage of you can manipulate all those frames with a grab tool and do these crazy cool effects, you know. So let's do a fire and see what's going on. I'm gonna improvise a little bit, okay, guys? And I'm again using the grid as a base to to help me guide everything. So to do the fire, let's start with just a simple cylinder. Okay, let's do the simple cylinder right there. Something like that. You may hear baby saying yellow. That's completely normal. So again, the waves, right? The waves are very important to get this kind of wavy effect, which is it happens in natural in real life when you see a smoke or a fire. They tend to have this kind of wavy effect, and when you see a 2D animated fire in a 2D animation, the wave are very important, not to get this feeling of a wave coming up. Let's make it a little bit more interesting. Just gonna want. I think that's okay for now. I think okay. We can make this a little bit more fiery. Just looks more like a fire. And also, I'm trying to be aware of the 3 dimensions as well. We don't want this to be a flat effect either. Well, something like that. That's okay.
You're basically doing the Quill Weekly Challenge. Water, fire.
Oh yeah, that's true. Okay, let's also not forget about the little guides, which are going to be helpful later. Okay, and this doesn't have to be too long. Okay, the other thing is, oh yes, I just want to make sure it's in the center. This doesn't have to be too long, because it's a fire doesn't normally, it's not like a huge column of fire, but just repeat it a bunch of times. That's okay. Actually, just make sure. Okay, that's good. I think that's enough times to repeat this.
20 minutes in, Daniel.
Cool. Yeah, no worries. It's so pretty fast to do. I'm not gonna. Okay, so we got this in the middle, more or less. Same process as always. Keyframe here. Another keyframe here. And let's make sure it moves just one quadrant only. I don't need to see the ghosting for this. Okay. Sequence it. Just boop. I mean, eventually you go pretty fast doing these things, right? Okay, we got a pretty fast fire, which is not bad. Actually, it's supposed to be fast, so that's good. And I'm gonna erase maybe the center part. Yeah, something like that. Okay, that's gonna be good. I'm using the grid as a, like, you know, for me, for reference. This is gonna be the center. So let's bake this out into frame by frame. Hit play and just gonna erase. Oh, I forgot to do something before baking. To delete the little guides. Oop, the lines here. Okay. And now we can bake it. Let's just get rid of that top part. Get rid of the bottom. And the bottom, maybe it doesn't even matter that much because the fire, if it starts in the ground itself can be like the cutoff point, right? And like Goro said, if we use the color of the background, it's even better.
You can just add it to your swatches. That's how I do it. I always
it just
go back to the color.
it just makes the gradient nicer, right?
Yeah.
So actually, this is good because it gives the impression that the fire kind of disappears into the, and it kind of becomes a smoke at some point, right? We could do the same. You can dodge it on the bottom to get the nice fiery effect. Actually, this is a very long fire. Let's imagine that all this stuff is the smoke already.
It's Back to the Future. It's like the fire trails.
Yeah, you can apply this to wherever you want and make it more or less complicated. But I think it's such a cool trick. Okay, I don't like it that it's flashing so much, so I'm just gonna go back to the original color and just kind of. Also, the coloring can be done without playing back. So if you select all the stuff, the whole thing, and then playback, select all the geometry, and then stop playback. You can also use the colorize tool, and it will be pretty precise as well, and it won't flash so much. So if we use the dodge,
That way, the colorization will be treated like a single stroke, so it's gonna be like even over the course of time.
Pretty consistent with all the frames. So let's use the thickness tool to make the bottom part of the file a little thicker, right? Grab tool to kind of play a little bit with it, just to make it irregular so it's not so perfect. Right? And we got that wavy action going up that looks so cool. And we can combine this with honey brush to make those little sparks that come out of on the fire.
This is a really cool trick.
Yeah. It's also super efficient, actually. Even if Daniel did the baking, which is usually like you have to use it with caution because you can just blow up your file size easily. Yeah. But what Daniel did is he just used like basically a line stroke, right? That you change.
The
so
beginning
like
was
pretty low
just
res.
It's actually
if you turn on the wireframe, yeah,
it's not super heavy.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's like one stroke.
It's cool.
So,
and it's not a very big sequence that's got baked out either. It's like, what? How many frames? Maybe a second or two's worth.
It end up because
yeah, not even 24.
Because it's pretty fast. It's 21 frames, but it depends on how slow, how fast you want to do the. In the case of the fire, it doesn't have to be really that fast. I mean, that is slow, so you don't require.
So for the remedy volcano smoke, you haven't used this technique yet, right?
No, I used another one, which I'm gonna explain too.
Nice.
Which is more based on like a particle system, which is yeah. And this, I don't know. You can dress up the fire however you want, and just add more stuff to it if you want. But having that wavy action really sells the idea. Oh, this is fire, you know. It gives you really good starting point, and then you can again.
What happens if you optimize this maximum? Like if you go to like maximum optimization on this one?
I don't know.
I wonder what it looks like.
Gonna break on all the frames or just one?
Yeah, on this whole layer. No, just use that button on this whole layer.
Optimize the current layer, yeah.
Yeah.
Boop. It just makes it more.
It still looks good.
It's not bad.
Yeah.
It looks cool.
It makes it more angular, I guess.
What's your poly count on the layer?
Can you show the stats of it?
It's all gonna depend. It's all gonna depend on how big you created that first stroke, right? Because like we mentioned in another live stream, if we look at the wireframe, this is gonna be more density than if you do this, right?
Yeah.
You have less polygons, less triangles than this. This one is super high density, and then when you do that, you have a high density cylinder. So when you do the thickness thing, you get even more detail with this on the thickness, right? So yeah,
you had like 40,000, or what does it say? How many polygons? On your layer?
5,000. Is that it?
Oh, that's cool.
That's
I think so, yeah.
right?
That's
Triangles 5,000.
Awesome.
Mm-hmm.
That's super small. Good.
And it moves up and down.
Yeah.
So we can just check that here. Yeah, it's not really heavy. You can use it for quest, depending on if you duplicate this 100 times. Obviously, it's gonna keep going up, right?
I mean, even still, like a second one only makes it 10. You'd need, I don't even know how many to actually make it probably like worrisome.
70.
I could do it.
So if we
70 times 5?
The other cool thing about this is if we duplicate, we have to remember there, because they're exactly the same timing right now, we can always go to the bracket at the beginning, right? You know how to do that, right? And then hold with the grab tool, with the grab button, and move that bracket to somewhere else in the timeline. So what it does is the two cycles are offset now, so they don't completely sync, and they look like two different fires instead of exactly the same.
And the
Nice.
reason why it's good, what Danielle just did to trim the beginning, is when you merge the layers down to one, if you just offset the whole clip without trimming, then Quill will think that it's not being trimmed. So by the time you merge it, the timing is matching again. So if you want to merge layers, it's important that you trim from the left side and then push the entire clip back, if that makes sense.
All right, let's get rid of all this. Let's make some smoke. Smoke.
Oh, it's so wasteful.
It's okay. It's so quick to do. So
You're at 30 minutes, Daniel.
okay, I did this. Actually, to do the smoke, let's do another technique, which is something that I did on the remedy, which is basically like a particle system, more or less. Okay, so let's start with making some smoke. Oops. How did I do that? I did something like that, right? I think that's it. Kind of something like this. Like my initial sprite, right? Something like that. So it kind of looks like a smoke cloud. Okay, so what else? Okay, I think what I did is let's create the. We're gonna create the movement up for this, so it just moves up. Okay. Obviously, it's gonna be slower. All right, and also, damn, no. Excuse me, I forgot to. I had to put this into a group, and the group is the thing that I animate. So let's move this up, and yeah, and let's move it in scale as well. A little bit bigger, so it kind of gives you that impression that it grows, right? And I think I did a little bit of rotation too, just a little, something like that. So the beginning starts like this, and it kind of rotates, something like that. Okay, so and also we're gonna animate the transparency using this guy here, keyframe, and here just gonna do another keyframe, and here it's gonna disappear completely. You can choose if it's something like that, and then eventually disappears. And at the beginning of the cycle also we want it to appear from nothing, right? From nothing comes up, and it disappears. And also what we're gonna do is a little bit of another layer of movement side to side instead of only going up. Another layer of transform, and in this one I'm just gonna move it slightly side to side so we get a little bit more of that.
The layer is not in the group.
Oh yeah, that's the reason why. Okay, a little bit of side to side, right? So it kind of moves a little bit on a wave.
I don't think you set a key.
Yeah. I'm so distracted today. Okay, and it goes back to normal. And these keys, I'm gonna make them ease in and out, so it looks a little bit smoother. We want this to go back in there. Let's see how that plays. Side to side to side. Maybe this one not so much. Just gonna tone down. All right. Something like that. It's not perfect, but it's okay. Oh, how many keyframes I have here? Yeah, perfect. Okay. So we have two animated groups, and we have one layer that contains the actual geometry. And let's just loop this whole thing by putting it in yet another group. It's not crazy. Am I doing this right? Yes. Yes. So this is gonna be main smoke or something.
I think you swap the groups. The main has the keyframes, so you have to move the one below up. Yeah, that one.
So that's the father. That's this one. Oh,
This one has.
what have I done?
Yeah, I think that's it.
Okay, this one has the up and down. This one has the side to side. Let's name it just in case I forget again. Up and down, and this is the one that we just used to create the loop. And hopefully this should create the infinite loop of this little piece going up forever, right? So now we're gonna create a lot of draw calls by doing this. But this is the way I did it. So I don't know how I managed it to work in the Remedy, but it worked. So just we duplicate this whole thing, and we use the same trick as before, just by offsetting the loop so it doesn't really begin in the same frame. So we have a little offset between these two groups, right? So let's create more of this. And you know, enough amount until we, you know, always watching the draw calls, I guess. At the moment there's nothing. So we got something going on, right? Something like a smoke column, and I did a bunch of duplicates, but each duplicate is exactly in the same position, so let's play with that too. Let's just make it a little bit different, right?
You have recording on still. You have the auto key. Yeah. I think it doesn't matter for this, but
yeah,
just
because
in case.
I didn't have anything selected, right?
It will still set a key, but I think since you're not animating it, it's fine.
Yeah. Yeah, when you do this, you wanna make sure that you're not recording. So it's cool because even when it's playing back, you can go ahead and kind of tweak a little bit the positions of this so they look a little bit different. You can even, maybe one of them is kind of around it. You know, it's hard to know which one is which, but that's okay. So this one is a little too far. This one is a little too far here, but that's okay. It's all about trying to get this variety, right? We can do some more duplicates of this. Again, changing the offset so it's not exactly the same. It's very random how I change the offset. I'm not following any particular rule. I just randomize this so they're not kind of doing the same thing. Another way to get variety on this is by going inside of the groups and say, okay, which one is this one? This one? Okay. This one. And then going inside the groups and going to the actual geometry and, you know, do a little bit of the difference thing here so it doesn't always look the same. You know, going randomly into each group and see, okay, here maybe instead of that we're gonna do this, so it looks a little bit different. I don't know. So we're starting to get a little bit more variety on that. And I think that's it. That's how I did this. And then obviously I think I did it a little faster, the smoke. Well, this is how I did the smoke group on the volcano.
So basically, you would say like because it's like a very slow movement, it's probably recommended to use the transform keyframe approach versus the frame by frame, because if it was frame by frame, it would be like tons of frames, right?
Yeah, it will be tons of frames. I mean, we could try to see what happens.
I wouldn't
There's
bake that whole
also
thing.
there's also a weird issue when you try to do the anim brush with it, where if you do it too slowly, the brush won't actually like make a stroke. So it can be
Oh yeah,
really
especially if
jittery.
the brush is large, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this one I used for, you know, it works well because it kind of looks like this really giant smoke column on a volcano, and I think I did too much on the side to side. I regret that now. But you get the idea of the trick, right? So you have one cycle moving up, disappearing and appearing, and then you can duplicate that cycle many times. The good thing about this, it doesn't consume a lot of geometry, but it does consume draw calls. So you have to be aware of that, of the advantages of these and disadvantages of that.
Yeah, what I actually to take this a step further, you don't have to show that, but if you actually nest rotations of the smoke asset, like of each smoke particle with transform keyframes, then you get even more organic movements, right? So I did that in my astronaut piece, where an astronaut is like surrounded by fog. I just rotated the crap out of each stroke, and then I rotated the group, and then I rotated the group again. So it's like a nesting madness, but the poly count stays like really low that way. And you get like tons of like organic movement.
Rotating in what direction?
Yeah, well, so basically the smoke asset itself, like for example the paint layer that you have there on the bottom, the very last paint layer. No, in the group that you selected.
Oh yeah,
that could be rotated and looped, you know, and so on. But
oh yeah. So I can just go like that and
exactly. But I would do that also for transform keyframes, and then it would just become even more organic, because then you can't tell where the rotations are coming from anymore. You know, you add more randomization.
I was kind of wondering about that too. Like, would it be cool to have them like all rotating upwards so it really looks like it's billowing?
Yeah.
As it would go.
You could do that in instead of on the, I think the main smoke, this one. In this animation, I did a little bit of that, where the very last frame. Oh, where is it? Oh, here. I rotated that a little bit. Oh, did I? I guess. Where is it? Oh.
Because it's invisible.
Oh, okay. Whatever.
Yeah. You're like already faded out.
Yeah, anyway, we can do a new keyframe here.
It's okay, only 15 more minutes, Danielle.
Okay, 15 more minutes. Okay, let's use that time to explain how I did the. Yeah, you mean these rotations?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, it depends. Yeah.
You can nest more and more and more. I love doing that, so the more rotations, and sometimes I rotate along different pivots and stuff like that,
Yeah.
and then it becomes like super organic. But this is already looking like that. It's really cool.
Yeah,
Does
I mean,
puppeteering advisable?
you could do puppeteering for the initial movement up and this. I think that could be also a good solution to, instead of having this layer here, you could do a puppeteer layer, and then use that and then duplicate that many times and then do the same offset that I did, so you will get that kind of particle effect as well. I mean, you guys can experiment with this, but you get the idea. Let's do the caustics. Oh, I don't know how you pronounce
The
it.
caustics.
Caustics.
The caustics.
Because I thought that was also a really cool, based on the same things that we talked about today. Let's do that quickly, and we can.
Yeah, I can just answer Kurt's question about if it's advisable to puppeteer. It really depends on what you want to do. I think for the smoke itself, it's recommended to do it through keyframes because you want like a nice, steady, even movement. But if you have, for example, like the smoke in a violent storm or something, then you can just puppeteer the movement much better by hand, for example. So it really depends on what look you're looking for. Sometimes I puppeteer things. Sometimes I use, like, for example, for like those even movements, I tend to use transform keyframes because then you have much more control, and it will look much more like how a particle would behave when it moves slow. But then sometimes you want like different effects where you want it to look more random or faster and stuff like that. In that case, I would use puppeteering.
All right, thank you.
All right. So let's break down how I created this effect that turned out to be better looking than I thought. When I started doing this, I thought, oh, this surely is not going to look good, but let's try. And I looked into videos on how the caustics move and what they do in things like in video games to optimize them, or to figure out a way to make it look realistic, or with very little impact on the performance and stuff like that, right? And they basically use like these sprites and these textures, and they make it loop and move infinitely in one direction. And I was like, oh, infinite movement. We can do that in Quill.
Yeah, I really love how you solved that, actually. Like, I tried it before, like, I created just like a grid like you did here, and I did not quite analyze how caustics work. And then what I did is, like, I just wiggled them with a with the nudge tool, but then it just looks like a grid that's wiggling. It kind of works in a stylized way, yeah, but that's not how caustics work, right? So the way you solved it in your whale piece is much more elegant and nicer.
I did it two ways. The first way that I did it is by creating this one thing and make it dance a little bit, and I duplicated that many times. And but I'm not gonna show that. I'm gonna show the other version, which is kind of what I end up thinking it looks better. But before duplicating, let's create a little bit of just make it look more like a caustic. So I realized looking at pictures and videos that they have this kind of brighter side on the when when the strikes how do you call this, the streams of light are kind of crossing with each other, they tend to be brighter, no? Give me a little touch there, just to give the feeling that's kind of it. So okay, let's do a duplication. This time we're gonna do it side to side. Maybe they're not gonna connect perfectly. I'm gonna try to make them connect, but maybe they won't, but that's okay. They won't connect. That's okay. I'm not gonna fuss about that. What do I want to do? Oh yeah. Let's just make it.
Do you need markers?
Actually,
No markers.
Yeah, you need markers. Yeah, you're right. Let's do some markers to make sure that we are doing this precisely. Right on the grid, more or less. Okay, it's not gonna connect, but it's okay. You'll get the idea anyway. And we got like a bunch of repetitions. Hi, baby.
Oh.
Yes. You're very loud today. Yeah. All right. So I can't concentrate with this baby. What am I doing? Oh yeah. Move sideways. Let's do that sideways instead of up. And let's move exactly one grid size. Is that good? Yeah. And per sequence, pop, pop, and pop. And we're moving infinitely with this thing. All right. Delete the little markers. Very important to remember that. Up. And I think we're ready to bake it. Bake it. Let's get rid of that. So now we have these wonderful pieces moving. First thing to do was gonna be just get rid of the pop as much as possible. It flickers a little bit, but that's okay because that's what caustics do. They flicker. But you can always avoid the flicker by just selecting all the frames like we did before. Okay. And talking about flickering, we could do that. Dodge maybe, and have some kind of nice little flickers. Right, and we can do a little bit of that dancing thing that we were talking about here. Hoppa. No, I should have done this when it's a static. Sorry, that's not the right time to do that now, but it's okay. We can do a little bit more variation like we did before with the wake. Just selecting everything, playback, stop the playback, and kind of just a little bit of nice variation to it so it doesn't always look the same. And here's the important bit. We're gonna do this into a surface of the, in my case I did the whale, right? So with grab tool you can always get this whole thing to conform to a shape. So let's say we have this kind of whale, big whale animal or whatever, and the caustics are hitting on that, so we with grab tool you can. It's just wonderful that you can do this because it actually looks like a texture.
Nice.
Right? It's so cool.
Yeah.
I
You know
love
what? Like looking at this, I would be interested what it looks like if you colorize this all evenly with the background color, so it's like transparent, and then you only use the color dodge to bring it back.
Oh yeah, that could be a
So
good idea.
right, I think that might look crazy good because
if we have the same color as the background, we
just
can
change the background color to the new color.
There you go. And then let's do some. Actually, without playing, let's do this.
Yeah, I would try to do the whole thing. You know,
Oh, you want to do
colorize
the
the
whole thing and then
yeah, so it becomes invisible, right?
Oh, okay. All right.
And then just reveal it.
Oh,
yeah,
that's a cool
exactly.
idea. Okay, so we have everything kind of invisible.
Yeah, make sure the background color matches the current brush. So you just tap the background color a little quick. No, yeah, boom, yeah.
So
And now you have to like.
You're saying dodge.
Now bring it back with
in
dodge.
time or with everything stopped, because it
I think in time. Yeah, try to let it flicker.
I encourage you guys to practice and to experiment because it does different effects. So if we do it in time, like Gordo said.
You have unselected, right? Yeah, currently selected, I think still.
Did I?
It's still selected, right? It's still blinking. Yeah, now.
Oh,
that looks pretty good.
That looks pretty cool too, though.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, I never thought about that. Hang on. Let's unselect it, right?
Yeah, exactly, and then let it flicker.
And little
because
little dots of. Actually, this is not bad either. To have one area that kind of reveals. That kind of looks cool too. This kind of area that kind of reveals itself.
I'm stealing that.
The brush big and just hold it in for a while. Like yeah, make the brush bigger. And then yeah, colorize over time. Yeah. And make the strength small, less. The transparency, make it like really weak, even weaker than that.
You want.
And then just torch the whole thing. Yeah. There we go.
It looks so cool. I don't know.
Wow,
you can always experiment with this.
It looks like I'm getting like kind of distant lightning and clouds vibes from that too.
Oh yeah,
there's a bunch of stuff that it works for.
Yeah, I don't know. It could be for anything. I mean, once you have the thing going and the waving and the infinite.
Wow,
movement,
this looks crazy.
It opens up a lot of cool effects that you can create just by doing that, and the organicness of it is so cool. Once you start doing grab tool over time or with a stop frame, the stop frame what it's gonna create is if I paint here, for example, every time the geometry goes through this area is gonna be hit by this light, which can be a good thing because you can make it look like the light is hitting this area, right?
Know what I do today?
Actually, oh no, hang on, I did it wrong. Sorry, you have to select everything first before. Yeah, select everything first. Make sure that we go through the whole loop. Press pause, and now you can say, okay, I want this area to be brighter, and all the waves every time they go through this area, they're gonna be brighter. Look at that. Isn't that wonderful? So
I'm gonna play with caustics today.
Yeah, that's great.
Encourage you to try and practice and kind of experiment because I think it's such a discovery for me, this technique.
We're at time, Daniel. Perfectly at 11.
We're done, right?
Yep.
Cool. Awesome.
We're done, right?
I just wanna I did something yesterday. I wanna show you quickly.
You guys know that adding salt chef meme thing?
Oh yeah. The guy with the sunglasses.
I just kind of picture Daniel adding that when he was dodging the caustic.
Oh.
Look at this smoke column.
Oh,
That's awesome.
whoa.
And
That's how you do smoke like a boss.
and I did exactly the same techniques, right?
So you mixed both techniques, right? You have the fire the way you showed it, and the smoke you did it the
Yeah.
second way, or?
Yeah, similar way with the same cylinder as a starting point.
Oh, you combined it, yeah.
And I did the little balls.
Wow, that looks crazy.
So this
Really
actually, yeah, to me this one looks better than the system that I did for the remedy for the volcano. If I knew this back then, I would have done it this way because this.
Oh, so this one doesn't have transform keyframes, right?
No, this one is with everything baked.
Okay.
This is all baked, the smoke, and I
Yeah.
feel like it looks better because of this little deformation that happened here. That looks a lot like smoke. I think I really like that.
Yeah, the very tippy top is just awesome.
This distortion that happened, that wouldn't. I didn't know how to do that back then, and if I knew, I would have done this and for the remedy for the volcano on the back, on the distance, and the fire. I added this effect as well. I don't know if you guys use it or not, but I think it's a cool effect that you can just get with a simple.
Oh, your glow effect, yeah.
The glow effect. Since we're talking about effects today, this is just a one cylinder brush, eraser tool, right? You get this, and then thickness tool to make that transition be smoother and bigger, right? The more you use the thickness tool, the more transition you will have from the center to the outside. So I recommend using that as well for kind of glows. But for the quest, it's not recommended to do a big area of this. So you don't want to.
But do you feel like in general, if you share it to mobile, and if you look at it with your quest, do you feel like in general, if it's small glows, that it still works?
If it's small and it doesn't cover your whole vision, it's really fine. It's okay. The remedy has a lot of those.
That's true. Yeah.
I used it constantly, and if you don't see flickering or glitches. You will see glitches if it's something like this. If it's
on the sides, right?
Yeah,
on the peripheral view.
On your peripheral view, you're gonna see glitches and weird things in Quest only. So, yeah, just a word of advice. If you do this technique with the glow, just make sure it doesn't cover the whole vision of your. And if it's in the center of your vision, that's better. If if it goes into the side of your vision, it will glitch a little bit, but you won't notice because you're not looking at that.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, it's a cool trick to do this gradient kind of thing. All right, I think I'm done.
Looks amazing, Daniel. Thank you for your stream today.
Yeah, that was awesome.
Thank you, Daniel.
Guys,
Thank you.
See, guys, this is why you should have voted for this one first. This one's cool.
Save the best for today.
Yeah, I wanna see awesome effects on the next Quill scenes on theater.
Well, the thing is, like this week's Quill Weekly Challenge is elements, right? So this is perfect timing for your tutorial.
Exactly. If you're a little late, it's okay, right?
Fire, water, smoke, and wind, right?
Wind.
And earth. For earth, it doesn't really help, but
no, not really.
Someone can do Avatar
for wind either.
Well, wind has particles. You can do wind with smoke and stuff, you know.
Okay, let's.
Yeah, you can have like
this is the
maybe leaves
end
flowing
of
into
the class, so I'm gonna stop the recording right here. Thank you for watching.